not. It's 8:57. We're starting at Florida Gulf Coast. Brad.
We appreciate the extra 3 minutes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to introduce a member of our Board of Trustees, Ms. Robbie Repsdorf, a longtime supporter of Florida Gulf Coast University and a significant figure in Southwest Florida.
Welcome. Thank you.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair, Governors, and Chancellor Brogan. As President Bradshaw said, I am Robbie Repsdorf, and I serve on the Florida Gulf Coast University Board of Trustees. I'm very, very proud of that. It's my pleasure to be here today, and as a representative of Florida Gulf Coast University and for all of Southwest Florida that it serves, I just want to thank you for continuing to work on behalf of the state university system, Florida Gulf Coast University, and as a citizen of Florida. Really, truly appreciate it. Your many contributions this morning are appreciated by all, and we would love to share with you some of the highlights and challenges that we are presented with in our work plan for 2011. So if you allow me to please introduce the members of our team here. President Wilson G. Bradshaw, our Vice President and Administrative Services, Steve McGarrah, and our Vice President for Student Affairs is Mike Rollo, and then our Associate Provost is Paul Snyder. So now Dr. Bradshaw, President of our university, will provide a brief overview of our work plan, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions following. Dr. Bradshaw.
Thank you, Trustee Repsdorf. Madam Chair, Governors, just to remind you that Florida Gulf Coast University is the public university serving the 1 million people of Charlotte, Collier, Lee, Glades, and Hendry counties of Southwest Florida. This fall, in our 15th year of operation, we will surpass 13,000 students, nearly 12,000 of whom are undergraduate students. Our students will have access to 84 academic degree program options to choose from, including 51 at the bachelor's level, 30 at the master's level, 1 specialist program, the doctorate in physical therapy, and this fall we will welcome our first class to the doctoral program in education. These programs are delivered by 425 full-time faculty members, about 220 part-time faculty, and they all are supported by over 600 staff members. Our strengths continue to be the success of our graduates who exhibit SUS top quartile postgraduate Florida employment rates. Our focus on teaching, nearly 80% of the hours taught are taught by full-time faculty members. Our planned and sustainable growth that has characterized our development over this last decade. Our energy efficiency as measured by cost per credit hour delivered and energy consumption. All of this is accomplished in a rich and rigorous learning community that has an unwavering commitment to environmental sustainability. The challenges, of course, acquiring adequate resources to fund our growth and development in terms of state support and PICO dollars. Developing an academic program portfolio that defines a fully comprehensive public university. Increasing our statewide visibility as we enter our 15th year of operations this fall. And continuing to develop strategies to increase our retention and graduation rates. All of these challenges remain the focus of our improvement efforts. A brief snapshot of how we are doing on key system-wide metrics. Increasing degree production. We continue to make steady progress toward our goal of increasing degree production, as we can see from this slide, and more fully in our work plan. We are increasing total degree production. We're increasing degree production among historically underrepresented groups and across selected strategic areas of strategic emphasis, and that includes the STEM disciplines as well. Graduation and retention rates also continue to improve within a context of our significant growth. The percentage of students either graduating or still enrolled has improved between 2009 and 2010 on the following dimensions: the 6-year graduation rate, the 5-year graduation rate of students who are not first-time in college students, and our 4-year graduation rate for transfer students and students coming from some of our sister institutions has remained steady. As you can see, nursing licensure exam passing rates have also significantly improved. So what are the goals, strategies, and associated metrics for gauging our progress? There are 4 principal goals that remain the focus of our strategic plan. 1, continuing improvement of graduation and retention rates. Some of the issues affecting students' persistence to graduation include our range of programs, the ratio of faculty to students, class size, financial aid, including both need-based and merit-based support, academic advising, and student life programs. We have strategies to address all of these, including hiring more faculty and advisors, better tracking of students' academic progress, and stepped-up fundraising for scholarship support. Of course, we will monitor the metrics that assess these, as well as retention and graduation rates, which they should have a positive impact on. We continue our growth, which will lead to further increases in degree production, and we will track that to make sure that we're meeting the goals in our work plan that, of course, are informed by system-wide goals. In support of this goal, we will complete new facilities, including our new health professions building, a new residence hall, parking structures, and other campus infrastructure. Some of the metrics we'll use here include fulfilling our enrollment plan and meeting our degree production goals. Academic excellence. We'll look to add additional academic programs to expand the breadth of academic programs to meet state and regional needs. We'll continue to emphasize assessment, continuous improvement through accreditation of programs and schools. And we will make strategic investments in academic support areas such as the library, instructional technology, advanced laboratories, and support staff. Some of the metrics to gauge our success will include additional programs, many of them in the STEM areas that are included in the table in the work plan, and achievement of further professional accreditation in areas such as music, music education, and education. Environmental sustainability and innovation. This fundamental area we believe can help build our identity and visibility through our commitment to being exemplary stewards of the environment. Many of our programs already focus on issues related to the environment, and we have a required course that promotes environmental literacy from different perspectives. Our commitment can also be seen in the construction of green buildings, in the service of our students, in efforts to use clean energy sources and reduce energy costs, and to promote regional economic development through our participation in FGCU's Emerging Innovation Hub project. Some of the metrics we use include construction of facilities to lead standards, number of student service hours related to the environment, monitoring energy costs per square foot, and energy cost savings. No one funding source will determine the success of our plan and the attainment of these 4 goals. The plan uses a mix of sources that may include general revenue, tuition differential funds, new Florida funds, fees, PICO, private bonding, private fundraising, and grants and contracts. The magnitude of our success will depend on the realization of these funding sources. In viewing our enrollment plan and our tuition plan, you will realize that key among our assumptions are meeting our enrollment targets and fully utilizing available tuition and fee revenues. Seeing an increase in PICO funding and the resumption of matching funds are also an important factors in the attainment of our goals, particularly as they complement private funding. Obviously, if it were possible to address our funded enrollment, the realization of our goals would be that much more attainable. Trustees, Madam Chair, I appreciate your attention to our presentation, and we would be happy to clarify any portion of it and respond to any questions and accept any comments you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Bradshaw. I will now open it up to questions, and I see Governor Duncan.
Good morning.
Thank you for your presentation. Obviously, growth is a huge part of your strategy, and looking at particularly Goal 4 and PICO funding, you know, it had a big purple block there, if I was looking at it correctly, that kind of, and counts on that coming back next year. What's plan B if it doesn't? You know, I mean, I don't think we can really bank on that for sure, and just kind of what strategies are you guys going to utilize if PICO does not rebound fully to be able to support all the growth? And also maybe if you could just talk a little bit in the context of that. I know we periodically have read in the clips about kind of another campus and growth and land. Can you just talk to us about how that fits into your long-term strategy?
Madam Chair, Governor Duncan, I attended the Council of 100 meeting fairly recently, and I've read 2 or 3 or 4 times the white paper that's been produced by Tax Watch. It's very clear to me that funding of PICO projects going forward will simply, we can't use the old method. And we're going to have to, meaning not just this Board of Governors, but the state is going to have to determine how we are going to fund PICO projects going forward. I suspect that next year and the year after, that purple bar will not be so thick when we're defining our PICO dollars. Our next project on our PICO list is a building we call Academic 8. I think we will have to forego that project, postpone it, push it back until we determine that we have resources available. I think one thing, when you come to our campus, you will see buildings that bear the names not of alums, like many buildings that have names of our established campus, but they bear the names of people who have invested in Florida Gulf Coast University because they realize what an asset a public university is to the region. So you'll see names like Lutgert and Sugden and Kleist and others. And those names represent significant contributions from those people and their families, which allowed us to really jumpstart our facilities program. So we have had in the past, and even currently, what we consider a fairly aggressive building campaign. Some of it is PICO funded, some of it is a combination of PICO and private funds, some of bonding projects. But I suspect that our Academic 9 building will, it'll be pushed back a few years until we determine how we can fund that.
And how does that affect, though, your other growth and enrollment and tuition? I mean, how does that spiral? If you don't have the facilities, is it going to force a scale back on the enrollment too?
I think that historically we have properly prioritized the buildings that we build. Academic 9 is really an administrative type building, not an instructional building. So the buildings that will allow us to increase the size of critical programs and accommodate our enrollment, those buildings were high on the list, and we're now completing the construction of a 70,000 square foot health professions building, which will have classrooms, offices, and state-of-the-art simulation laboratories. So by postponing that, I don't think we lose a lot or a significant amount of instructional space.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned about branch campuses. We are laser focused on building out our current campus. We have no plans for branch campuses. We do have some continuing education sites which offer 99% non-credit types of programs for lifelong learning. But we have no plans or have we in any way engaged in identifying a branch campus site. I remind those who bring those opportunities, if that's the right word, to us, that when our sister institutions were building and evolving, in their first 15 or 20 years, they were not building branch campuses, and we won't.
And I've had the honor of being able to talk with a number of your trustee applicants, and you've got a great board down there.
Thank you.
It
I
really,
agree.
it's been fun talking with the people, and the amount of support, Madam Chair, that they have in their community by the number of people who have applied for the positions is amazing. So they're doing great stuff in their community. The one other thing, I guess, just as student affairs chair and academic affairs is, you know, what are we really got to do to catapult those graduation rates, though? Because it seems like we kind of have hit a little bit of a plateau. And how are we balancing the growth with that and kind of getting those attainment goals as well?
There are several things that we're doing. Because we are so young, many of our students, they come to us for a year or two and transfer to institutions that have programs that they're interested in. I think over the last 3 to 5 years, we have bolstered our academic program portfolio. So we're going to see more students stay with us. Also, I think we are focused on developing programs in engineering and the STEM disciplines. I think we will be able to attract more academically accomplished students, and they will be more successful. And the provost and the vice president of student affairs, we are looking at how we advise, and I mentioned how we track the academic progress of students. We're going to be appropriately interventionist to see how we can develop approaches that will enhance student success. So that's something that's very important to us.
So just as a follow-up to that, it's just so I'm clear, so if someone transfers, say, even to another SUS institution, are we showing that as a not complete, is that hurting your numbers even if they're transferring on? I'm curious if that's kind of double penalizing them more than others and how we're looking at your numbers.
I'll let the Associate Provost answer that.
Let me just answer that, Governor Duncan, by saying that the graduation rates that portrayed there is really within the institution. So there are additional tables that BOG staff have prepared that show the success rate of our students that go on to other SUS institutions to complete their studies. That would increase our success rate, if you want to call it that, by at least another additional 5 percentage points. So
That's important to
that
understand.
graduation rate number doesn't tell everything.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I'm done.
Thank you.
Governor Edwards.
The Chancellor in his remarks talked about the problem that we have with access. I think we all know that we have not treated our faculty very fairly when it comes to academic funding in recent years. Florida Gulf Coast is our youngest university, and certainly as I looked through all of these plans for our universities, I saw where almost every university over the next 3 or 4 years was planning on adding additional programs, almost all of which were available somewhere in the system. What would be the impact on Florida Gulf Coast if we took a radical approach and said, okay, for the next 4 years or 3 years or 5 years, until funding improves, we are not going to add any additional programs. We're going to take the resources and the funding that we would have applied there and put those to increase access and hopefully upgrade the faculty and the salaries. Would that adversely affect you?
Madam Chair, Trustee, Governor Edwards, the radical approach that you did, your words, not mine, the radical approach that you just described, I think that we could, and I'll speak for Florida Gulf Coast University if I may, and not for our sister institutions. In recent years, as we have developed programs because of funding, we have made decisions not to advance programs on the original timeline so that we could address other priorities. All of us within the SUS, we have as a high priority the recruitment and retention of high quality faculty that will allow us to meet our mission. And if the Board of Governors decided to put a moratorium for any period of time on the development of new degree programs with the intention of helping us retain and recruit really good faculty, we could adjust to that. We have done that in the past, and being youthful as an institution, we're also very agile, some will say spunky, and we are very used to adjusting appropriately to a very changing environment. I'll remind the board, if I may, that still the majority of our students come from Southwest Florida. We educate Southwest Florida. We are their higher education public option in terms of a university. And we will do everything to make sure that we don't dilute our serving those students. I work with some very smart people, and we can adjust to the environment in a way that will allow us to actualize our mission.
Governor Colson?
Yes. stunned by the size of your faculty and that only 13 of them are tenure or tenure track. And I understand that's a different approach that's being approached. And I'd like your comments, and then I have a follow-up on how that's working out at Florida Gulf Coast, and in terms, in particular, of your ability to attract quality faculty for our students.
Certainly, Madam Chair, Governor Colson. The 13 faculty members who are tenured at Florida Gulf Coast University are some of the original faculty members who came with tenure from the University of South Florida, and possibly one or two other state universities when we were starting. The other faculty members, as you know, we don't have tenure at Florida Gulf Coast University, and I was so pleased yesterday when our Board of Trustees received the names of the faculty members who are being promoted from assistant to associate and associate to full professor. What I was impressed with was the academic pedigree, if you will. Those folks have credentials from some of the finest institutions in the world. When we advertise for faculty members, we have large, very impressive pools of applicants for those positions. When we look at our turnover rate, it is no higher, not significantly different from institutions who have traditional tenure and tenure track positions. So we have found that it is now part of, if you will, the DNA of Florida Gulf Coast University. Not having tenure, I think our faculty members who come to FGCU, again, who are very well qualified, and those who perform well and stay, we don't have much discussion about tenure. Our focus is on professional development so that faculty members can be the best that they can be when they're in the classroom and provide the research and scholarship and service that we expect even in a tenure track environment.
If I could follow up. When I look at the statistics for our system as a whole, the quality, the numbers in the SATs have increased a little bit over the last 5 years. Your institution's numbers have gone down just a little bit over the last 5 years, and you're not the only one, but the system as a whole has gone up and yours has gone down a little bit. What is your explanation of that, and do you think it's at all related in terms of there being a sense of, for the better students, I can get better quality education where with faculty that's you know, a more traditional faculty setting? And I didn't say that well,
Yeah,
but
no, I understand. Let me respond this way. One, if I'll harken back to my comments when I was presenting my report, 80% of our students, or 80% of the student credit hours are taught by full-time faculty members. We need to get that message out better. But also now I think we have the kind of academic programs, particularly in the STEM areas, where we are better able to attract students who want the degree in software engineering, which we now have, who want the degree in civil engineering, which we now have, which was recently accredited in the last year. So I think as we develop an academic portfolio that typically attracts a more academically prepared student, I think you will see those numbers change for FGCU and for some of our sister institutions as well. While we do have most of our students coming from Southwest Florida, this past fall was the first year that we got more applications and enrolled more students from a county outside of Southwest Florida. So I think we're beginning to become more visible and rapidly becoming more an institution of choice, and I think that will be reflected in the indicators of academic preparedness as we go forward.
Any other questions?
If I may, my colleague here reminded me of our honors program. I need to mention that because those are very high achieving students, and last year we made a decision to have a full-time director for the honors program, and we expanded the scholarship package for those students, and for that cohort of students the academic indicators went up, And so as we really want to plan to expand our honors program, and the provost is working very actively to do that. So as we provide the kinds of programs that our sister institutions have had for many years, that's going to have a positive impact on the academic profile of the students who come to FGCU.
Governor Yost?
President Bradshaw, obviously your growth at the university over the last 5 years and your projections of about 8% growth per year over the next 5 years address accessibility issues that are awfully important to the system. But I also look, appropriated funds per FTE have dropped 30% over the last 5 years. Student faculty ratio has gone up 30% over the last 5 years. And so my concern is that, if we look out 5 more years with perhaps the only new funding for new students being tuition dollars, what's going to happen to those numbers, and how much longer can that growth take place and continue doing quality education with no more resources? We've talked about PICO, but I think we also have to worry about, appropriated funds per student if growth isn't funded. Can you do this on the back of tuition?
Well, our enrollment projections would have us within the next 7 or 8 years be an institution of approximately 18 to 20,000 students. Clearly, if the funding sources, both tuition and the state appropriation, continue to go in the directions that they're going, the slope of that curve will certainly have to be flattened. And we recognize that. With regard to the state appropriation, and I think many, maybe all, of my sister institutions, and maybe they've experienced this earlier, this is the first year at FGCU where more than half of our operating budget will come from tuition. And as we project what the state appropriation is going to be in the next 2 or 3 years, that percentage is going to go higher because tuition probably is going to go up. But I will tell you, governors, that the tuition does not make us whole. The tuition does not replace the cuts and appropriations that we have seen. So while we will have a physical facility, and we're not quite there yet, but I think while we'll have a physical facility that can accommodate greater enrollments than we currently have, buildings don't educate students. Faculty educate students, and co-curricular activities enhance the academic success of those students. And we are not at FGCU going to minister over mediocrity. We will not. So we will make those adjustments as necessary, but I also hope that collectively we can find ways to adequately fund all of our institutions to meet our stated missions.
I guess the follow-up question would be if you're projecting, as everyone is probably in the whole system, 15% tuition differential growth over the next 4 years every year, that being the only source of funds perhaps. At what point do you run into competition issues of not being able to attract students because you've priced yourself out of the market for the students that you draw? Is that you're gonna hit that point in 4 years, or?
I don't think we'll hit that point in 4 years, but also think we have to be prepared to adjust those figures, that is the increase in tuition, downward based on other factors. It's possible that with New Florida initiatives and other resources that we will get more funding per FTE. I mentioned that in my presentation. Currently at Florida Gulf Coast University, we're among the lowest, if you'll permit me. we have the one of the lowest proportions of funded FTE in the system. If we can begin to address that, just funding us at the 90-95% level, FGCU would 80%, 85, whatever. We certainly would realize significant resources if we got more funding of our existing FTE.
Okay. Thank you.
President Bradshaw, I have
Yes.
A question. Can you talk to me a little bit about the relationship that you have with the closest, I think it's Edison, but I'm not sure, but the I guess state colleges, new state colleges that are in your area. Can you talk to me about that relationship? Is much happening with any 2+2
Sure.
Programming that you may have?
We have had several recent meetings with Edison State College. Historically we have worked with them collaboratively on some programs. we were looking at the programs and meeting with their academic leadership and their president, and the academic leadership, and so now is involved at FGCU to see what we have on the horizons. We're working closely with Edison now for a smooth transition of their BSN students into our MSN degree program. We're looking for ways to offer programs in their Charlotte County. We've done some of that in the past. The enrollment seems to have dried up in recent years, but we're always talking to Edison State College as well as State College of Florida. We have had several discussions with them about the joint development of some programs in high need areas. So, and I am a member, and Chancellor Brogan spoke to this group, I am a member of what's called the Alliance of Educational Leaders in Florida. We meet regularly. We are an established group that's comprised of the superintendents of the 5 counties, and as well as the president of Edison, myself, the campus head of Nova, Barry University, and we, throughout the year, talk to one another about what's going on and trying to find areas that we can collaborate in. Everyone is really struggling with fiscal issues, and so you know, it's very hard to kind of reach out a lot, but we're finding ways to do it to meet the needs of the students in Southwest Florida with our state college and private college partners.
I just have one final question. I noted in your presentation you talked about a music education piece, and you kind of specifically noted that as one of the programs that you're developing. Can you, I guess, when you hear so much about STEM and about how those are the kinds of needs that we need to meet within our state, can you talk to me about why that's important to FGCU and why that's on your horizon?
Well, one reason it's important is for several reasons. One is that we have some major donors that have endowed the Bauer School of Music and have provided additional private funds to establish professorships, and that is an area of strength that we can build upon. And frankly, it's not a high-cost program. Madam Chair and Governors, I'd also point out as you look at our array of degree programs that we plan to develop, over half of them are in the STEM disciplines. And the Board of Trustees just yesterday approved the establishment of our Bachelor's of Science degree in software engineering. So we have our eye keenly focused on the STEM disciplines as well.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I don't know if you have any closing remarks you'd like to make. I see 3 minutes, but don't feel compelled.
That's the 3 minutes you gave me.
We had 3 minutes on the front end, Madam Chair, and we wanted to avoid the hook, so we will conclude with that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So